Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into an absolutely foundational framework of human behavior, psychoanalytic theory. You've probably heard the name Sigmund Freud. Well, he literally changed the landscape of psychology with his revolutionary ideas about personality, emotions, and mental disorders. If you're looking to really grasp the bedrock of modern psychotherapy and counseling, well, this is exactly where we have to start.
But hey, before we get into the nuts and bolts of the theory, let me throw a quick question your way. Are our actions actually truly conscious? Like, when you make a decision, are you really the one in the driver's seat? Or are there hidden, unseen forces pulling the strings from the shadows? That right there, that's the central mystery Freud was trying to decode.
All right, so here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with decoding the unconscious mind. Move on to the iceberg theory. Look at the struggle of personality. Explore dreams and defense mechanisms. Touch on the impact of childhood. And finally wrap up with Freud's legacy and criticisms. Let's get to it.
Section 1. Decoding the unconscious mind.
Section 2. The iceberg theory.
To really understand the architect of these concepts, Sigmund Freud, we've got to look at his absolute most famous metaphor. He pictured the human mind as a giant iceberg. The conscious mind is just that tiny visible piece jutting out above the water. This is your immediate, everyday awareness, the thoughts you're having right at this very second watching this explainer, the feelings you're aware of. That's your conscious mind at work. It is, quite literally, just the tip of the iceberg.
But things get really interesting right below the waterline. The preconscious mind is that shallow layer just beneath the surface. Think of it like a mental waiting room or a storage area. It holds memories and information that you aren't actively thinking about right now, but you could easily pull up to the conscious surface if you needed to. You know, like remembering what you had for breakfast this morning or recalling your phone number. It's accessible, just sitting there on standby.
And then we plunge into the core of Freud's entire theory, the unconscious mind. I mean, just look at how massive this hidden foundation is compared to the rest. Freud believed this huge, dark area stores all of our deepest fears, painful memories, basic instincts, and hidden desires. And the absolutely crucial takeaway here, even though we can't easily access this underwater vault, these buried, unconscious elements are secretly and constantly steering our daily behavior.
Section 3. The struggle of personality.
So Freud saw the mind as a sort of battleground, an ongoing internal negotiation driven by three distinct forces. First up is the id. This is the primitive, highly impulsive part of your personality. The id is entirely driven by what he called the pleasure principle. It is demanding, it wants instant gratification, and it absolutely does not care about rules or reality. If you want food, fun, or comfort, and you want it right now, that's your id talking. It's the raw, untamed engine of our basic wants.
Now, to keep that wild id in check, we have the ego. The ego is your logical mediator, operating on the reality principle. Its main job is to be the realistic decision maker. It has to navigate the actual physical world we live in while still trying to safely satisfy the intense demands of the id. Basically, it's the ultimate negotiator, desperately trying to keep you out of trouble while still getting you what you need.
Finally, we bring in the superego. Think of this as your strict internal ethical compass. The superego represents morality, your values, societal expectations, and the rigid rules of right and wrong. It's basically the angel on your shoulder, constantly reminding you how you should behave based on social norms.
Everyday human behavior is simply the result of the constant friction between these three competing forces. Imagine you see a massive slice of chocolate cake, but you're on a strict diet. Your id is screaming, "Eat it right now." The superego is demanding absolute discipline to stick to your goals. And the ego? The ego steps in to negotiate a compromise. Maybe you just have one little bite. Pretty much every action you take is the result of this internal tug of war.
Section 4. Dreams and defense mechanisms. As you can imagine, that constant struggle between the id, ego, and superego creates a ton of internal anxiety. So, how does our mind handle it? Well, first, let's talk about dreams. Freud was absolutely convinced that dreams act as an unfiltered window straight into our hidden, unconscious desires. When we sleep, the ego's strict waking control kind of relaxes, and that allows all those buried conflicts and hidden wishes to bubble right up to the surface in the form of dream sequences.
But what about when we're awake? The mind needs active protection from all that anxiety. And that's exactly where Freud's famous defense mechanisms step in. These are unconscious strategies our mind uses to shield itself from severe emotional pain. We've got repression, which is pushing painful thoughts completely down. Denial, just refusing to accept reality. Projection, where you take your own unacceptable feelings and pin them onto someone else. And rationalization, basically creating totally logical excuses for completely illogical behavior. These mechanics act like a psychological armor for your mental well-being.
Section 5. The impact of childhood. Now, the professional takeaway here is huge. Freud proposed that our early emotional experiences, especially parent-child interactions, leave deep, lasting impacts on our adult identities. He believed that unresolved childhood conflicts actively shape who we become. Essentially, if you don't properly navigate the emotional hurdles of your youth, they don't just disappear. They will quietly, secretly influence your emotions and behavior for decades to come.
Section 6. Freud's legacy and criticisms. So where does the professional consensus stand today? Well, it's pretty divided. On one hand, Freud's major contributions are totally undeniable. He successfully introduced the whole concept of the unconscious mind, he built the foundation of talk therapy, which heavily influences counseling today, and he gave us an early framework for how personality develops. But on the other hand, modern critics rightly point out that his theories often lack hard scientific proof, plus he put a massive overemphasis on sexuality and hidden conflicts, rather than focusing on observable, measurable data. So we're left with a legacy of brilliant clinical breakthroughs balanced heavily by some very valid scientific concerns.
To wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a really powerful thought. Despite all the modern criticisms, psychoanalytic theory remains incredibly influential because it forces us to look deeper. It reminds us that hidden emotions, our childhood experiences, and our unconscious thoughts might just be shaping who we are way more than we realize. So as you go about your day today, I challenge you to ask yourself, was the last decision you made truly your conscious choice, or was it the hidden depths of the iceberg steering the ship?